Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video we'll be making an underbust corset. So this is the fabric I'm going to use. I've already ironed my gum stay on my fabric to make it easier for me, and I'm going to fold my fabric into two just like this, and I'll take my measurements on this part of the fabric so that you guys can see. So the first thing I did was to come down by 1/4 inch, and this line is going to serve as a base for me to take my measurements. So what I'll do next is to take away my armhole line. So this is an off shoulder, so I'm going to take my armhole line out, and from that point I'm going to take my under bust point, which is 13 inches. I'll do that and I'll make the line into a straight line. I'll also do the same thing. I'll take out my armhole line and I'll take my waist measurement, which is also the length of my corset, and is 16 inches. So just measure from your shoulder to your chest. That's your armhole line. So what I'll do next is to measure from one of my nipple to the other one, and whatever I have, I'm going to add 0.5 inches to it, and I'll take it on my base, on my under bust, and on my waistline, and then I'm going to straighten the line. From my armhole line, I'll come down by 1 inch and I'll straighten the line. On the folded part of the fabric, I'm going to go inward like this by 1 inch. And on my under bust line, I'm going to go up by 1/4 inch. And on the other end, I will come in by 3 inches. And then I will use my curved ruler to connect the 3 lines together. The next thing I'll do is to take in my dart. So on my waistline, I'll take 0.5 inch on my left, and I'll take another 0.5 inch on my right, and then I'll connect to meet my under bust line. On my waistline, I'll take my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll measure out my dart and I'll replace it, and then I'll add 1 inch for seam allowance. So I'll connect from my armhole line to meet my waistline. From my waistline, I'll come down by 3 inches. That's because I don't want my corset to be just straight the way it is. So I'll come from that 3 inches to meet my waistline on the other end. And this is optional. You can choose to leave your corset like this, but this is how I want mine. So we are through with the front pattern of this corset, so we'll move to the back. I'll fold my fabric into two just like I did for the front, and then I'll come down by 1/4 inch, which is going to serve as a base for my measurements. I'll take out my armhole line just like we did for the front pattern, and from there I'll take my waistline, which is 17 inches, and then I will take my bust circumference divided by 4. I'll add 1 inch for that, and I'll add another 1 inch for seam allowance. And on my waistline, I'll take my waist circumference by 4. I'll add 1 inch for that and 1 inch for seam allowance, and then I'll connect the line. So because I don't want the back of my corset to be straight, I want it a bit slanted, so I'll come down by 2.5 inch from my center back, and I'll connect to meet the other end. So the next thing I'll do is to take my dart. So from my center back, this is my center back, I'll take my nipple to nipple measurements, divided by 2, which is 4 inches, and I'll take 0.5 inch to the left and another 0.5 inch to the right, and then I'm going to connect to meet my neckline. On my waistline, I'll come down by 2 inches from my center back, same thing I did for the front pattern, and then I'll slant to meet the other end. So because I want to add loops to the back of my corset, just like what you're seeing on the screen, on my center back, that's on my neckline, I'll go in by 2 inches, and on the down part I'll go in by 1 inch, and then I'll connect the line. But if you want to add a zipper to it, there is no need to do this step. All you have to do is to add your zipper allowance and you are good to go. I'll connect the line and we are done with the back pattern of this corset. And the next thing we'll do is to increase our dart. So I'm going to increase my dart to meet these new lines that I've just made, and then I'll cut. After cutting, please notch on all areas, okay, so that you know which goes where. So I'll notch on the down part so that I can differentiate between the down part and the upper part, and I'll notch all the lines that are supposed to connect so that when I'm sewing I'll not be confused. So these are all the patterns that we need to make our corset. I'll just go ahead and cut a lining for this and then we'll start sewing. So we'll start with our center back and our side back. So you can see all the notches that I made, so that I'm going to connect everywhere together and there won't be an error. So what I'll do is to place my side back on my center back like this, and I will pin. I'll also do the same thing for the second side, and I'll take it to my machine and I'll sew on a straight line. So for the center front and the side front, you can see that everywhere is matching, so please notch, don't forget to notch. So what I'll do is to place my side front on my center front and I will take it to my machine and I'll sew. So I also went ahead to cut out my lining same way that I cut out my fabric, and I also went ahead to pin them the same way I pinned the fabric. So I'm going to sew on a straight line also. After sewing everything in place, what I'll do next is to join my side front to my side back, and I'll sew in with 0.5 inch. And I'll also do the same thing for my lining. I'll sew one part of the lining close, and on the other part I'll sew from the beginning. I'll sew like 2 inches. I'll come down by 4 inches. I will not sew that part, and then I'll sew the down part. So we have 4 inches opening. We'll be needing that later. And so I've joined my front to my back, and I'll trim out this part because I don't need it. So it's not a crime to trim. If one side is longer than the other, you can just trim out just like I'm doing. I'll repeat the same thing for the lining. So next thing I'll do is to create my boning casing. So I'll be using my bias for my boning casing. So I want one on the middle part, I want one on my dart line, both on the front and the back dart line, and I want one on the side seam. So I'm just pinning my bias on it just like this. I'll take it to my machine and then I'll sew 2 straight lines, and I'll be back. So this is my boning. I'm going to pass it through all these lines. So I've added my boning to everything. What I'll do now is to create my loop for the back of this top. So I'm going to fold my bias into 2 like this, and then I'll sew on a straight. The length of my bias is 50 inches. So we're going to create a space for our loop. So what I'll do is to come down by 1/4 inch from my center back like this. We are going to use this 1/4 inch to attach the lining to the top. So from there I'll come down by 2 inches, another 2 inches, and I'll make sure whatever I have here is also on the other side, just like this. So I'll start cutting out my loops. I need 10 of it, 5 for each center back. So I'll start placing my loops like this. I'll fold it into 2, and then I'll place it on the short area and I will pin. On my waistline, I'll also go down by 1/4 inch, same thing I did for the upper part, so I'll be able to attach my lining to it, and that's where I'm going to place my loop. After pinning everything down, I'll take it to the machine and I'll sew on a straight line. And this is what it looks like after sewing. So the last thing we'll do is to attach our lining to the main corset. So I'm going to place it like this, and then I'll pin on all the areas, and then I'll sew all the areas close. So I'm done sewing. What I'll do is to notch all the areas so that when we open it, it's going to be flat. After notching the opening that I left on the lining, I'm going to pull everything out through the opening. So this is what it looks like after turning it over. The inside is all nice and clean. So I'll sew close the opening, and then I'll add my rope to the my loop, and we are done with this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful. If you get to try this, please let me know how it turned out. Please subscribe to my channel, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment for me down below in the comment section. See you guys in the next one. Bye.